Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the patriot from the battle-born state, the silver state of Nevada, and that is Sharron Engel. Sharron, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos.
Thank you, Rick. It was kind of a long weekend for us all here at Conservative Commandos. I hope that people enjoyed our Memorial Day special that we had on yesterday. We kind of presented Brian Kofage again. I think that that's a story worth telling over and over again, especially with more of us as conservatives getting hit with the Facebook ravages, to see that how they have come so strongly against a veteran who has sacrificed all but his life, really, and is making a difference now for his family. He's got a business, and he just wanted to advertise his business, and then Facebook said, "No, you're inconsistent with our whatever." We can't figure inconsistency, right? We can't understand what part we're inconsistent with, but definitely they have a vendetta, if you will, against conservatives, and it really is non-discriminating against conservatives. Here we have, as I said, a wonderful veteran, someone who's taken care of his family, who has a thriving business, has overcome the odds. You'd think that everybody would want to help Brian Kofage, but not Facebook.
Not Facebook. And of course, we are in week three of the Conservative Commandos radio show website, www.ccrshow.com. We are banned. Our website is banned on Facebook. And, you know, Sharron, I try to post something with the link to our website on Facebook every day. And each day I get the same message. And that is, this cannot be posted because this site violates Facebook's community standards. Now, they do give you an opportunity to appeal. And you can ask for a review. So over the past 3 weeks, I've asked for 20-some reviews, 15, 20 reviews maybe, and none of those reviews have been acted on. However, Sharron, I reported a page to Facebook this past weekend, and in my opinion, that page was pretty insulting towards conservatives. Well, my God. Facebook acted on it the very same day I reported it and said, "Oh, no, nothing here. We can find nothing that would be a violation of our community standards." So it is a double standard, Sharron. It's a double standard with Facebook. Our site, a conservative site, and I invite anybody on our site. It's a public site, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com. Go on our website. Please find something, anything that would violate anybody's standards. I challenge you to do that. You will find nothing, because the things that we post on there are replays of our show, our radio show, our TV show, and of interesting articles. And I don't go to these Russian sites to find interesting articles. I find things on the Washington Times. I find things. Breitbart. I find things. Newsbusters. I find things. However, with Facebook, they feel that anything conservative is violating their community standards. So we'll keep you posted, our fight with Facebook.
Well, and I think that our listeners could help us build this case, because it's not just us.
No.
And at some point, we have been consulting with attorneys on this and our First Amendment rights. Also, discrimination. This is definitely some kind of discrimination, and a bigotry of a kind that we haven't seen in this country, and that is your thought. You are now being tested on your thoughts, not on anything else but just your thoughts and what your opinions are. So definitely a violation here of our civil rights. And although we haven't considered ourselves in need of being a protected class, I think it's about time that we perhaps open that door, because certainly Facebook is showing its true colors. Mm-hmm. And we also have been looking into the idea that they are a trust, an antitrust, an anti-monopoly case, mm-hmm. Because they do present a place where it's almost impossible mm-hmm. for competition to get started in that area. And, as you've pointed out on the show, they broke up Ma Bell. They broke up the telephone companies.
And they broke up Standard Oil. They broke up the railroads. And why? Because they were monopolies. And I would say Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter, they are all monopolies, and they're all run by liberals. So I say it's time. It's time for the federal government. And we've had a guest on here on Conservative Commando ask the question, well, do we really want the government to be looking into breaking up companies? Well, in the case of Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter, yes. They are Sharron, they have fired the first shots across our bows for the 2020 election. They intend to use their sites to get Democrats elected. The House, the Senate, and a Democrat elected to president. One other thing. I really do believe that by banning our website, this is a defamation of character. It's a defamation of character. Because I could see where other entities, sponsors, underwriters, guests who want to come on the show and say, oh, gee, we can't go on Conservative Commandos. Look, they're banned on Facebook. So I say that is a defamation of our character. We're also looking into that. You can say free speech. You could also say, well, but they're a private company. They're not a government agency. They're not a government entity. You can say discrimination. Well, we as conservatives are not a protected class. But defamation of character, I think they are defaming us by saying in some way, we have violated their community standards, much the same as pornographic sites have been banned on Facebook for violating community standards. So they are lumping us in with pedophiles. They're lumping us in with porn. How is this not a defamation of our character, Sharron Angle?
Well, I think you're right, Rick, and I think that our listeners can help us there as well, because we have listeners who own businesses that would probably want to advertise on Conservative Commando's radio show and have heard this and said, nah, not at this time. If that has happened to you, if you have held back your sponsorship of Conservative Commando's radio show because of this Facebook ban, please let us know, because these are the things that build a case for us, and we're here to fight for freedom. We're here to fight for your freedom, our freedom, everyone's freedom. And I'll just point out another fact. Ma Bell was private. The railroads were private.
Yep.
And we have been better off as citizens of this United States for the breakup of those monopolies. Look at your telephone bill every month, and you'll see that it is much better than it was when we just had that one company that was able to charge us anything they liked for long distance. Yep. And now it's a thing of the past, long distance charges. So we are all better for it when the government does step in the places where government needs to step in, and that is making level playing fields for businesses to operate in. We don't want preferential treatment. We don't want the Tesla approach. We don't want government subsidy. All we want is just fair play and a level place to put that play into action. We just want the free market system to work, and monopolies do not allow the free market to work. So, again, I'll just appeal to our listeners. If you've been thinking about sponsoring Conservative Commandos radio show and have held back because of that, because you think maybe there's something wrong with those guys over there because Facebook's banned them, please let us know about that. That helps build our case. If you have a case of your own that you'd like to add to it, maybe you're a conservative that's been banned from Facebook because of your opinion, like Brian Kofage, let us know, because there is power in numbers. If it's not just one voice speaking out, they listen much more carefully to two or more voices. So I'll just appeal to our listeners. There is a place where you can help us fight for our First Amendment, fight for our reputation, and fight for freedom here in America and the capitalist system.
All right, Sharron, we have to take a break. On the other side, I want to talk about another way that our viewers and our listeners can also affect or have an effect on Facebook, how they could say to Facebook, no more of this discrimination, no more of this defamation of our characters, no more violating free speech. And so we'll pick that up after our break. But for right now, you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Today's show is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. We'll also touch on Second Amendment after the break, and we'll also tell you who our guests are and the topics for our conversations. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website. If you hate Facebook, if you hate Twitter, if you hate Google, if you hate YouTube, go to our website. And that is www.ccrshow.com, www.ccrshow.com. Sharron, once again, we've got three wonderful guests joining us today.
Yes, we do, Rick. And our first guest is Tim Bryce, who is a freelance writer residing in Tampa Bay area, Florida, an avid writer and speaker discussing everything from business and management to politics and morality to systems and technology to our ever-changing world. In addition to his columns and blog entitled The Bryce is Right, which is read by thousands of people worldwide, Tim has also published a wide range of publications from Washington Times to the Huffington Post, and Tim's new book, Senior Moments, is now available in printed and e-form. And we've asked Tim to come on and talk to us about his article, Are These the Good Old Days? Something in the Water. You know, my mother always used to say, and that's the way he starts his article too, when there was something strange going on, or she used to say it about, you know, people who were having babies all at once. She'd say, well, there must be something in the water. So we'll be talking with Tim Bryce about what's in the water these days that are causing these things that seem not to be usual, right? Our second guest is Skip Estes, who is a legislative analyst for the Center for State Fiscal Reform at ALEC. After an enriching summer with ALEC as a tax and fiscal policy intern, Skip rejoins ALEC as a recent graduate of the College of William and Mary in Virginia. And with his master's in public policy, Skip is thrilled to have the opportunity to apply his passion for state tax and fiscal policy to his debated political philosophy with conservative, progressive, and socialist political clubs. Through his master's cause work, Skip authored an award-winning thesis comparing effects of marijuana taxation on state revenues in Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. I can't imagine him being thrilled with fiscal and tax policy, but, you know, some people are thrilled with those policy issues, and we're excited to have him on to just talk about this idea that these marijuana taxes are now coming into these states, my state in particular. So we'll talk about those state tax roundups and ALEC and how they can impact that state tax roundup and those taxes and tax cuts that have been going on here in America and across the U.S. So we'll pick out a few states for Skip to give us an analysis of. And our final guest is Roger Aronoff, who's the Executive Director and Editor of Citizens Commission on National Security. Roger founded the Citizens Commission on Benghazi, and he has produced and directed 6 documentaries and produced a weekly series on PBS called Think Tank with Ben Wattenberg. We've asked Roger to come on and talk about CCNS members, help expose the unraveling Obama administration conspiracy. And as we were talking before the show, you said everyone loves a conspiracy. So we'll love to talk with Roger about this conspiracy. Actually, the Democrats love the conspiracy that they have pitched over the White House these days, yep, that of Russian involvement, and we're grateful to our Attorney General Barr for saying there is no there. There is no conspiracy there. However, you might want to look in some other quarters, specifically Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and I'm eager to see what they come up with over there as well.
All right. So indeed, we do have 3 great guests, a lot of terrific topics. You know, Sharron, in the first segment, we talked a lot about how our website, www.ccrshow, is being banned on Facebook. That Facebook says that our website is violating their community standards. And I've also asked people to help us out, go to our website, find one thing on there that you might think would be a violation of anybody's community standards. But there's another way. There's another way to affect Facebook. And I say go after their pocketbooks. Go after their advertisers. Let their advertisers know how Facebook is treating 60 million American voters. And Sharron, that's how many people voted for Donald Trump. That's nearly 1/5 of the country's population. 50 million or 60 million people voted for Donald Trump. Okay? That is a large percent of the population for Facebook to be ignoring, for Facebook to be banning. And you know, these advertisers who advertise on Facebook, they're going to Facebook because they want the biggest bang for the buck. But at the same time, Facebook is limiting their potential
market
customers.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So let Facebook advertisers know that you will not deal with them because they advertise on Facebook. You know, Sharron, the left, the liberals have been very good with boycotts. The gays, Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition, they've been very successful in boycotts. We need to do the same thing. We conservatives need to use our economic power to punish. Let's do what Barack Obama said. Let's reward our friends, but let's punish our enemies. And I say right now, Facebook is an absolute enemy. An absolute enemy. Sharron, you know, I say during our show, at least once during our show every day, that today's show is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. I think they go hand in hand, but I think you have a very interesting Second Amendment story that happened right in your family.
Well, you know, I live in the Wild West. In a lot of ways, people in the East, they think of Nevada as the Wild West. They ask us a lot of the times, you know, how do you deal with those wide open spaces? How do you deal with just the culture out there in the West? And we are the Wild West. I was looking at one of our good sources, GOP USA Today, and you can see their stories at GOPUSA.com. We kind of direct you there on our website, CCRShow.com. And it was interesting. They've decided in Texas that maybe they will allow open carry during times of disaster. Well, in Nevada, open carry is just part of our culture. And the other day, my daughter and my granddaughter were in a restaurant, and a fellow.
Let's say, but your granddaughter has spent a lot of time on the East Coast.
That's right. She's become almost a Philly native there, and then she moved to LA, which is pretty much the same liberal land, as you well know. Anyway, they went in to have some dinner in a restaurant, and a man came in with a holster and a gun on his hip, open carry. And my granddaughter said, "Oh my gosh, there's a guy with a gun. Maybe we should leave." And my daughter said, "That bothers you?" And she says, "Oh yes, that's I just can't imagine why he would be carrying a gun." And she said, "Well, think of it in a different way. This man has walked in here with his pistol on his side. And now everybody knows that if someone were to come in here and start to shoot it up, he would drop that guy before they had a chance to kill someone." And
Sharron, I bet he wasn't the only one in that restaurant that was carrying, that wasn't packing.
That's right. That's right. There were probably a lot of concealed carry, but he was in the open. And because he was in the open, people were aware that there was a protection there. You don't just carry open if you're going to be the perpetrator. You usually have in mind self-defense. And that's exactly what all of our gun laws are about, is self-defense. And so my daughter said, "You should feel very safe here because there's someone here ready to defend us all.
What was her reaction to that?
Yeah, well, she changed her attitude. She says, "Oh, I get it. I get it." And I think most people do get it once you explain that the Second Amendment is about self-defense. We are expected to defend ourselves. This is not where the government takes care of you. Mm-hmm. America's a free country, but we are also free in that we are supposed to defend ourselves. And most of us know, if we've ever called 911, the police get there at the very earliest 5 minutes after your call. Well, it's all over in 5 minutes. These things go down in a matter of seconds. And so we really need to be aware. In Israel, I was glad to hear that most of them are trained in the military. And after they get out, most of them carry. They carry open, they carry concealed, but they know how to use their weapons for self-defense. And they don't expect their government to do that. They expect their government to defend their borders, but they also are part of that government. They know that they're part of the defense. Mm-hmm. And so when we've asked some of our guests from Israel, where do you feel safest, Israel or the U.S., they always tell us Israel, because everybody is carrying. Everybody knows how to defend themselves. We are vigilant. We watch. We take care of ourselves. And I wish that our country, America, was more tuned up with that than pushing for gun control. Here in Nevada, they just passed another law to control guns, which has to do with the registration of weapons. And
registration leads to confiscation.
Sharron,
registration leads to confiscation. Tia, your granddaughter, very lovely young lady. I think slightly misguided, but I think she'll, as she goes on in life, just like she learned a lesson the other day, she'll learn other lessons. And all these mass killings have taken place in gun-free zones. Why? Because those people there are not protected. Sharron, got to go to a break. You are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with a friend of ours, Tim Bryce. He does a report called The Bryce is Right. I love it. He's written a great article. Are these the good old days? Something is in the water. Don't go away. Sharron and I will be back with our guest, Tim Bryce.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Angle. I want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and seen on the AUN television network in places like San Francisco and Sacramento and San Jose. And with that, Sharron, our first guest of the day is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's always a privilege and an honor to introduce Tim Bryce, who is a freelance writer residing in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. An avid writer and speaker discussing everything from business and management to politics and morality to systems and technology in our ever-changing world. In addition to his columns and blog entitled The Bryce is Right, which is read by thousands of people worldwide, Tim has also been published in a wide range of publications from the Washington Times to the Huffington Post. Tim's new book, Senior Moments, is now available in printed and ebook form. Tim, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hi, Sharron. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's interesting, Rick said the Villages. I just got a call from them a few days ago, wanted me to come up and do some lectures up there. So,
very
This
cool.
could be good.
Very cool.
Well, we always shout out to them, so hopefully they're listening today.
Hey, Tim, do you have the time, the date yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
There's an application process you have to go through. I put that all in. Boy, they want a ton of paperwork to say you're not going to say anything dirty or you're going to behave yourself. And I guess they don't want me climbing the sides, going crazy up there. But no, it goes through that and then they schedule something in there. So it'll include some lectures and some book signings.
Well, hopefully we'll keep our audience in the Villages posted. And
yeah, I got to make a plug for that later on. I have a new
Absolutely.
book that just came on out, but nonetheless.
Well, it may be that title of your new book, Senior Moments. We all know what those are about, so maybe that's why they're screening you. You wrote an article, Are These the Good Old Days? Something in the Water? And you start that article out talking about your mother. My mother used to say that as well. There's something in the water when something odd or unusual was going on. So talk to us a little bit about what's in the water today.
Well, she made the observation saying, why is everybody so mad these days? And it occurred to me we have a lot of rugged independents out there. I remember W. Edwards Deming used to talk about that a lot. There's no spirit of cooperation. There's no teamwork anymore. Just people are out for their own self. And, I don't know why that's happening. It's about me first, I guess. A lot of it has to do, I think, with technology also, because everywhere, I don't know where you guys go, but I go to the gym, I go to the store, I go all over. Everybody's plugged in and tuned out. And when you try to talk to people, they look at you like you got three eyes, and like, well, what do you want from me? What is it? And, hey, I'm just trying to have a little conversation or something. So, something is very strange. And that leads into my article that I'm going to do on Thursday, which is a big political piece called What's Going On? With apologies to Marvin Gaye on that, but what's going on with the Democrats more specifically. And I tell you, something's got to be in the water because these guys are crazy, plain and simple. Since January, I've written a series of very fundamental pieces out there talking about things like what is the profile of the Democrats? What about capitalism? What about Christianity and all of these kind of things? And I put it all together in this one. And the biggest conclusion I've come out of this, hey, this is no longer your father's Democrats. You know, I can remember the Democrats at the 1968 convention up in Chicago. These are nothing like that. And it's nothing like Jimmy Carter's years either. You know, I mean, it's gone crazy. And it started in January when the Gallup organization came on out and said 51% of the Democratic Party is now liberals. And I always thought they were liberals. They said, no, this is the first official time that they said they are liberals, you know, that they're going to come on out of that. And that kind of makes sense to me because the moderates are bailing out. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that one post. I can't remember who was the congresswoman who said that, but she said that, you know, if you are not pro-life, you should get out of the Democrat Party. And, well, okay, what does that mean? If you don't support open borders, should you leave the party? If you don't believe in entitlements, gun control, they want you out. They're trying to purge the party and go even further left than imagined. So, yeah, so right now the Democrats consist of 51% are liberal, 34% are moderate, 13% are conservative. And the conservatives are bailing out. You know, they're going either independent or they're switching over to the Republican Party. I'm active in our Republican Party over here in North Pinellas, and I can tell you we've had a lot of people make the change, come on over, you know, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of crazy. And they're also saying some crazy things too, the dumb things like Bernie Sanders coming on out and saying that, you know, terrorists and prisoners, you know, incarcerated prisoners should have the ability to vote, like the Boston bomber, you know, and I mean, what? Come on. Then he made the other comment too that he said, what was it? That abortion is a constitutional right. Yeah, you know, I've been through the Constitution a few times. I don't remember seeing abortion in there, and I don't think our founding fathers that would even dream about something like that. But they go on and on and on, you know. And you had Kirsten Gillibrand come on out. And he says, you know, these anti-abortion laws being introduced by Missouri, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, and all that kind of stuff, you know, that's going against Christian faith. And I said, well, what are you saying? That, you know, if we abort a fetus like just before it's born, that's okay? That's a Christian act? I don't think so. Now I even heard today that they're talking about let the child be born, the baby be born, and then they snip the neck. And I'm going, what are you guys talking about? This is insanity. What's happened? Then you have Kamala Harris come on out, and she wants to have, she totally wants to reject right-to-work states. And I got news for you. Right-to-work states are the ones that are making, you know, the most progress out there financially. You know, if you go back to the Mercatus study that they had out there, the top 10 states out there who have right-to-work laws are the best fiduciary responsibility. Those that don't have right-to-work laws are the worst. They're all Democratic states, too. You know, you have New York in there, New Jersey, Illinois, California, you know, the usual gang of idiots. So it's scary, you know. And then Senator Cory Booker and Kamala Harris come on out. They're saying they want to change gun control laws and all that kind of stuff. And then the one that really, really gets me, there was a thing a couple months ago from Gallup organization talking about the drop in attendance and membership in churches and synagogues and mosques. You know, from 1938 to 1999, we averaged at 70% membership of all of these institutions. 70%, that's not bad. But since 2000, it's been going down, and it's now at 50%, with the biggest drop happening amongst Democrats. You know, Republicans dropped membership from 77 to 69%. That's an 8-point change. But the Democrats have gone down 71 to 48%. That's a 23-point drop. And one guy theorized, said that I think this is happening because Republicans embrace religion, and you know, therefore they become iconic. And so the Democrats are staying away from church because it's viewed as a Republican institution, which is nuts, which is absolutely nuts. So I look at the Democrats now as being the anti-God party. And I don't mean that facetiously. I'm very serious about that. They want nothing to do with Christianity. They really hate Christianity. They hate capitalism. They hate the Constitution. They hate conservative values.
Well,
so I'm back to my original point.
That's right.
What
you
the
are.
heck is in the water?
Well, and your original point too, that there's an anger out there, and the anger is directed at conservatives and at Christianity and at the Constitution, the 4 C's that you mention in your article. That's where the anger is directed, and those of us that stand up for any of those things become the recipient of that anger, even within our own families. It's really, as your mother said, there's something in the water here. We do need to take a break, Bryce. We will be Tim Bryce. I called you Bryce. Sorry,
Tim. It's okay.
Our guest
or your holiness. You guys can go with that.
We are talking with Tim Bryce of The Bryce is Right. That's where I got that. Your catchy little title for your blog, The Bryce is Right. He's been talking about his article, Are These the Good Old Days, Something in the Water? And we'll be right back. I'm Sharron Engel. I'm here with my co-host, Rick Trader, right after these messages.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right time. So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line
And once again, thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. And for rebroadcast of our shows, don't be afraid of our website. Irregardless of what Facebook thinks, we violate no community standards. But you can hear our radio show there, watch our TV show, pick up a lot of great articles, and pick up some great information. Our guest this segment is Tim Bryce. He does The Bryce is Right. He's also has a new book out, Senior Moment. Tim, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Pleasure to be here.
Tim, you know, you and Sharron were talking about there's something in the water and what's going on with the Democrats. It seems like, Tim, I never can, and I'm getting to the point where I'm older than dirt, I can never remember such vitriol, not just in politics, but in life in general. And I'll give you an example. The other day, my wife and I went to a graduation party, and something was said about beards. And my wife said, oh, Rick had a beard. And I mentioned that, yeah, I had beard, and because my hair and my beard were gray, that I look like Robert E. Lee, which I did. To which point, one of the younger people almost gagged on their hot dog, just at the mention of Robert E. Lee. But it seems like, Tim, people are getting nasty to the point where there are many, you know, they used to say, well, don't talk about religion or politics in social situations. Well, you can't even mention history today. You can't even bring up the name Robert E. Lee or Thomas Jefferson without people looking at you like, how dare you?
Yeah, no, it's madness. It's madness. And, you know, that's one of the pleasures of getting older, you know, and I write about in my book on there, is just, you're not concerned about political correctness after a while. You really don't care. All you want to do is stick to the facts and talk common sense. By the way, in my book, I have a section on history for the record on a lot of stuff. And I talk about how the public education system came about in this country, which is going back to, I think, let me get that right now. The very first Continental Congress made a big thing about it. It's in the Northwest Passage. Nonetheless, it's just remarkable. And I was watching yesterday the Memorial Day specials, and I was looking at all the statues they have over there for Vietnam and what have you, and beautiful statues, beautiful things on there. And I'm just saying to myself, how long is it before they're going to start tearing those down? Because there's something there they don't like or whatever.
Well, they'll find something that will offend them, that they represent military oppression. But you're right, Tim. You're right. Oh, well, there's talk already. Who was it just last week says we've got to cut Thomas Jefferson out of our vocabulary?
Oh, that Mayor Pete, yes. You know, again, and one of the things I bring on up in this article coming out on Thursday, I talk about, I knew more about government and history by the fifth grade than most of the kids coming out of high school today. You know, we studied the French and Indian Wars. We studied the Revolutionary War, which was really big for us because I was growing up in Connecticut at the time. In Connecticut, you know, it was New England. They were very much into that. Knew a heck of a lot more about the Civil War. We had to memorize things like the preamble to the Constitution, parts of the Declaration of Independence, the Gettysburg Address. And I think we know much more about the Civil War than today's kids do at all. And, you know, what we talked about, even, I can remember this, in the Underground Railroad, we talked about that. We talked about John Brown. And we talked about, you know, all kinds of things. And this is fifth grade. And then we, of course, moved on into there into Reconstruction, World War I, where my grandfather served. And then World War II, where my father served, Korean War. So we knew all of this. And I remember when they explained to us the Holocaust, fifth grade. And the Holocaust, we sat back and we went, what, really? They exterminated all these people? You know, that was a real eye-opening experience for me. The atomic bomb, too. But we had a real fascination with it. We want to know. That's not how it's done anymore. Over here, American history is from World War II to the present. God forbid we should talk about the Civil War, Revolutionary War, Declaration of Independence. They don't want them to know. They don't want them to know. World history is World War I to the present. So much for the ancient Egyptians, Marco Polo, and God forbid, these guys did nothing, Ferdinand Magellan, and Columbus. Forget those guys. They were all racist. And I got to spit this out now, get it out of the way. I can't believe that they did away with the statue for Kate Smith over at the Philadelphia Flyers arena because somebody said that she was a racist. I said, wait a second. This is the guy. This is the woman that FDR introduced to Winston Churchill as Mrs. America. And, she was a patriot as far as I'm concerned. Ronald Reagan gave her, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And she is a racist from some obscure thing. I don't know where they dug it up.
Well,
the point is they want to get God out of our culture. And that's really what this is about.
Tim, of all the hundreds, probably thousands of songs that Kate Smith sung and recorded, they found one that talked about the word darkies was used. That wasn't her word. That was a word that was used in this song. And the New York Yankees refused to play God Bless America.
Because of that.
Because of that.
They changed my old Kentucky Home, which is played in the Kentucky Derby. My old Kentucky Home is out, because that used to say that.
Tim, being a Philadelphia Flyers fan, going to the first Flyers Stanley Cup parade, Kate Smith was an icon. Yeah. Kate Smith was as popular as Bobby Clark, Dave Hammer, any of the Flyers. She was an icon. They would play Kate Smith's rendition of God Bless America before every important game because she was like a lucky charm to them.
That's right.
Kate Smith in Philadelphia was right next to Billy Penn. And for this to happen is not a disgrace to Kate Smith, but it is a disgrace to these liberals, I really do feel. Now, you and Sharron were talking about how the liberals want to remove God from our vocabulary, take away in God we trust. Do you remember? These are the same people who booed the word God at their convention.
Right, that's right. And I remember they did that down here at the Tampa. They brought it up, that's 2012, I believe it was. Yeah, they tried to take it out. And also understand this House of Representatives now, they took out So Help Me God out of the swearing in ceremonies.
Incredible.
Yeah, you're aware of that, right?
What I'm hoping, Tim, is right-minded, right-thinking people see the actions, the hypocrisy of the left, the nastiness, the bitterness, and say, I don't want to be a part of that.
Right.
Maybe.
Well, I'm working on a piece right now talking about impeachment, and I'm going back and comparing and contrasting the differences between Richard Nixon, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump, and what kind of support. If they go ahead and impeach, which is, I think they're going to impeach Trump. They're going to give him some fraudulent charge.
I hope they do.
I think it's going to happen. Best thing that could ever happen to Trump, because then he's going to run away with the election.
I hope they do. I agree with you. You know, people do not like instability in their nation, in their country.
Impeachment used to be a last resort, don't forget. That was the last resort. Now it's a common political tool, and that's wrong.
And once again, I think people did not like Bill Clinton being impeached, all right? And they may not have agreed with Bill Clinton on all things, but they didn't like the idea that we are impeaching our president.
Everybody knew he was guilty. Everybody knew he was guilty. The punishment did not fit the crime.
Well, hey, Tim, we have to run. Tim Bryce.
Hey, appreciate it. While I'm doing it, hey, don't forget my book, Tim Senior Moments.
You got it. Hold it.
Get it on Amazon. It's on an ebook format and printed. It's just a charitable contribution.
Tim Bryce, always enjoy bringing you on the show. And where can people follow you besides buying your book?
TimBryce.com, BRYCE, TimBryce.com, or just Google me or Yahoo me and Tim Bryce, you'll find me.
All right. Tim Bryce, thank you so much for joining us. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Good seeing you all again.
Same here. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be talking about an ALEC report of publication. ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council. They're going to be talking about the 2018 state tax cut Roundup. Don't go away. We'll try to find out how your state is making out as far as tax cuts go and what it means to your state's economy. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Angle. And once again, for rebroadcast, please check out our website, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com. You can find our radio show there, our TV show, a lot of great articles and some terrific information. And with that, Sharron, we do have our next guest. The honor of the introduction is yours.
It is an honor to introduce Skip Estes, who is the legislative analyst with the Center for State Fiscal Reform at ALEC. After an enriching summer with ALEC as a tax and fiscal policy intern, Skip rejoins ALEC as a recent graduate of the College of William & Mary in Virginia with his Master's of Public Policy. Skip was the president of College Libertarians and debated political philosophy with conservative, progressive, and socialist political clubs. And through his master's coursework, Skip authored an award-winning thesis comparing the effects of marijuana taxation on state revenues in Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. Skip, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Well, it's our honor to have you. And I was a member as a state legislator of ALEC.
Really?
Yeah, we have, of course, as state legislators, there are professional groups that go along with legislators in each state, and you have your choice. You can go with ALEC, or there's a more, they call themselves the middle of the road group. And then, of course, there's the guys on the left. And I always had enjoyed ALEC. And in fact, my last conference with ALEC was in the World Trade Center just before, it was in August, just before 9/11 that year. So I'll always remember that ALEC conference because of that. And ALEC has they're kind of a think tank, I guess you would call them. For legislators, they look at different forms of legislation and kind of make recommendations on what states might do in different policy areas. So I'll just give you an opportunity to just kind of expand on that and tell us a little more about ALEC. But also, they do a state tax cut roundup, and we want to get into that with you.
Oh yeah, well, I'm glad that you highlighted the voluntary aspect of ALEC. I would like to point out that ALEC is the largest voluntary organization that's nonpartisan for state legislators in the country. I know you were mentioning other groups that state legislators are members of, but oftentimes the legislators don't have a choice of whether or not they are members of that organization. So by ALEC being voluntary, we create a great organization of people that want to be engaged on a variety of policy issues. So what we try to do is to create a policy forum where we can have a sharing of ideas between private stakeholders, state legislators, and other nonprofits as well that are in a policy space. And what you have is that enriching experience that you described from your time with us at ALEC.
And you put out a lot of good reports. In fact, we used to go to ALEC. That's American Legislative Exchange Council. By the way, that's what ALEC stands for. And we used to go there as legislators looking sometimes for what other states had done, or perhaps what good minds thought about different things. And of course, we always enjoyed getting your state tax cut roundup to see how we in Nevada compared with other states, because it really does affect the economy of a state, your tax policy. You are in competition with other states, and you want to be careful that you don't tax yourself right out of business for people leave your state if there's too much taxation. We're feeling the effects of that here in Nevada from California. We call them the California tax refugees. They're coming over that state line. And so I want to get into this state tax cut roundup. And we do have listeners on ground stations, of course, everywhere over the internet, but on ground stations in California and Florida and Texas and Nevada. So we really do want you to kind of highlight some of those states for us where our listeners are thinking, well, I wonder how my state stacks up, because I just got through April 15th and it didn't look very good on my end.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the different state experiences, and especially California and Nevada. Interestingly enough, Nevada's never qualified for a state tax cut roundup report, and part of the reason is that their tax code is already really, really good. They qualified for 4th place in our Rich States Poor States report that we released in April, and part of that is the reason for that is that Nevada currently does not collect a personal income tax or a progressive income tax. So relative to other states in the region like California or even Oregon, Nevada is very competitive when it comes to state tax codes. Interestingly enough, California has qualified for state tax cut roundup, but oftentimes you'll see states that currently don't have good tax codes that qualify for our report because they realize that they're in dire straits and they need to do something about their economic competitiveness. So they've started to move in the right direction. And for your listeners in Florida, Florida's qualified for state tax cut roundup every single year we've done it. So this is the 6th year in a row that Florida has substantially cut taxes for their residents. Another states that are worth highlighting, North Carolina has been in state tax cut roundup 5 years in a row. Arizona, Wisconsin, and Rhode Island have been in state tax cut roundup 4 years in a row. So what we see is that these 6 states have a very dedicated devotion to common sense tax reform.
Well, we have a difference now in our states. We didn't used to talk too much about the political difference, but right now it is glaring. We have blue states, we have red states. So are the red states the only ones that are cutting taxes? I mean, we expect that from a red state because they're more conservative. They get it, that tax cuts do actually stimulate economy.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I love about this report is that oftentimes it's not just red states that are cutting taxes. We're seeing blue states make the correct moves towards more common sense tax reform as well. Just in this edition, we had Rhode Island with a Democratic governor and Democratic legislature pass substantial net tax cuts for the residents for the 2018 tax year as well. Even Bernie Sanders' home state of Vermont substantially cut taxes for their residents. And it wasn't something, small or a small cut here and there. They substantially decreased their top tax rates for their personal income tax. So that's not necessarily a policy you expect out of a democratic socialist paradise.
Well, I'm going to have to turn this over to Rick, but before I do, because Nevada has become one of those marijuana states, and because you wrote your thesis on marijuana, and even though we know that that's not exactly an ALEC thing, I wanted to get your opinion on what has happened with these marijuana taxes now that we're a few years out with some of these states that have had them in place for a while.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've seen with marijuana taxation at the state level, and you're right, there's really no ALEC model policy on it, but how we view it is that almost every single state that's legalized recreational marijuana since the first states did it back in 2012 is that it's being passed by referendum. So oftentimes the voters that demand legal recreational marijuana, and it's oftentimes not really up to state legislators as to whether or not marijuana becomes legalized. So it's our job as the policy forum that I indicated in my opening statement, that our job is to educate state legislators on the best way to create a legal marijuana marketplace. So we're not going to advocate for legal marijuana because the science just isn't there yet. But what oftentimes it's not a choice for state legislators. So it's our job to give them the toolkit to properly approach what their voters are requiring of them to be good public servants. So to get more into tax policy specifically, what we saw in Washington and Colorado is a very interesting phenomenon. So Washington's tax rate, when at the time that I wrote the paper, was 32% at retail. Colorado's was at 15% at retail. So it's over twice the tax rate. And at the time that I wrote the paper, Washington had twice as many marijuana consumers as Colorado did, and yet had less than half the tax revenue. So what that's indicating is that the tax revenue and regulatory structure that was set up in Washington state was so restrictive that it actually discouraged people from exiting the black market into a safe legal market that's safer for consumers. And what we saw in Colorado is people were much more willing to enter and buy into the legal state system for recreational marijuana. And as a result, the state revenues blossomed compared to other states with more restrictive tax codes. And what we describe that phenomenon in the economics community as the Laffer curve. And Dr. Art Laffer, who was President Reagan's economic advisor, is one of our Center for State Fiscal Reform's co-author with ALEC Vice President and Chief Economist Jonathan Williams on the Rich States, Poor States report. So it's really interesting seeing having a close working relationship with Dr. Laffer and seeing his economic ideas occur in state experiences.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the Rich State, Poor State report. So comparing that state competitiveness in that state tax cut roundup factor in those how does that state tax cut roundup factor enter into rich state poor states? How do you work with that?
Right. So Rich States, Poor States uses 15 equally weighted policy variables to determine how competitive a state's tax and fiscal policy is compared to other states. And one of those variables is recently legislated tax changes. And for our upcoming report in We just released the data in April. That data is going to be including a lot of the tax changes and tax cuts that were made during the 2018 legislative session. In addition to that, a lot of the states that are cutting taxes in state tax cut roundup are cutting the personal income tax rates, they're cutting their corporate income tax rates, and oftentimes they're reforming property taxes. And all of those are feeding back into variables into our study examining how competitive states are with each other. So states that appear frequently in state tax cut roundup are going to have a fantastic economic outlook compared to states that don't have a dedicated performance of tax reform through our report.
Well, we've been talking with our guest, Skip Estes of ALEC, about the state tax cut roundup. And we are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California, places like San Francisco, San Jose, San Rafael, Santa Rosa, Redding, Chico, and Sacramento. We'll be right back after this break with our guest, Skip Estes of ALEC, and my co-host, Rick Trader. I'm Sharron Engel.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Again, we're putting out our website out there. You can check it out by going to www.ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find rebroadcast of our TV show, our radio show, a lot of terrific articles, a lot of great information. Our guest this segment is Skip Estes. He is a legislative analyst with the Center for State Fiscal Reform at ALEC, and ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council, and we're discussing the 2018 state tax cut roundup. Skip, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
I'm glad to be back.
Well, you know, Skip. Tim was our last guest. Skip, You have 16 states that are involved in this state tax cut roundup. Last time I checked, there were 50 states. That leaves about 34 out. What's going on in these other 34 states that they're not included in your state tax cut roundup?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because it gives me the chance to dive into our methodology a little bit so our listeners can understand exactly what goes into this report. So we have four requirements that states must have in order to qualify for our report annually. And that is that the state must have substantially cut taxes, that they must have voted on a substantial tax cut during the 2018 legislative session, that the tax cut must have been a net tax cut, as in they didn't raise taxes elsewhere to counteract any tax savings, and that the tax cut must have been broad and neutrally applied. In other words, bringing their tax code more in line with ALEC's principles of taxation. So some states so you rightly pointed out that there's a lot of other states that didn't qualify for our report. And that's oftentimes because they either didn't cut taxes this most recent legislative session or they raised taxes elsewhere. So for instance, Delaware could have qualified for our report this year because they did pass a tax cut. However, they raised taxes in other areas like on alcohol and tobacco, which unfairly punishes some consumers for their own choices as individuals over others. Connecticut might have qualified for this report, but they had a premium on their corporate income tax for corporations earning over a certain amount of money. So it's tax decisions like this that are not neutral, that are not fair, that ultimately disqualify states for this report. So I don't know if you looked at our past editions, but 16 states qualifying for this report in 1 year is almost the most that we've ever had. I believe the first year we did the report, we had 18 states qualified. So 16 is pretty close to that record.
All right. Well, Skip, how do tax and let me ask you, do you also follow these tax cuts and what it means to states' economies and jobs within those states?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So these tax cuts carry through to our rich states, poor states economic competitiveness report, and what that report does is compares the tax and fiscal policy decisions across state lines to see how do states compete with each other for jobs and economic prosperity. And when states have a dedicated performance of a dedicated devotion to tax cuts, as we demonstrate in this report by looking at which states have multiple appearances over multiple editions, that means that those states are more likely going to be represented as economically competitive compared to other states. So, for instance, I mentioned Florida, which has been in this report every single time we've done it. Florida is almost always in the top 10 of rich states, poor states, and it's because of their dedicated devotion to cutting taxes.
Skip, do you get the ears of the legislators in these states? I mean, do they look to your report, to the ALEC report, and as a guide?
Oh, they absolutely do. We will frequently visit. We generally try to get to around 35 to 40 states a year. And every time we're there, we give a presentation on rich states, poor states, and of course, we tie in Tax Cut Roundup to give a window of what was done in the most recent legislative session and provide options for what can be done in the upcoming legislative sessions. So we'll oftentimes get requests from legislators, how can my state become more competitive? And generally, that comes from states that don't do so well. And everyone loves their home state, so we're more than willing to help legislators parse through the difficult economics behind tax and fiscal policy. Things get pretty in the weeds. So it's our job as a policy forum to educate legislators on what the most economically competitive tax and fiscal policy decisions they can make. So every time we go around to the states, legislators love our report. We usually order around 10,000 copies, and we get rid of every single copy of Rich States, Poor States over the years.
Skip, the Trump tax cuts, did they have an effect on state taxation?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up because that plays into federal tax conformity for states. So the Trump tax cut was passed in December of 2017, or I guess more accurately, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And what that did was substantially change the definitions of what is and is not taxable at the federal level. And states like to practice what they call federal tax conformity, which means that for simplicity reasons, a lot of states, in fact, around 45 states, tie their definitions of what's taxable to what the IRS defines as what's taxable. So when the federal government makes big changes, the state governments have to conform to those changes themselves. What we saw in the tax law passed in 2017 was that the federal tax code of what is taxable and what is not taxable became a lot broader, meaning what is taxable became a larger amount of money. So they grew the size of the federal tax base. So when states conform to those federal tax changes, they're going to be broadening their own definitions of what's taxable. So, for instance, in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the federal personal exemption became zero, ultimately, effectively repealing the personal exemption. So when states conform, they were also changing their personal exemption to zero. And what we were seeing is that many states were seeing a unlegislated tax windfall of over $500 million, and depending on the state, upwards of over $1 billion annually. Mm-hmm. And, some politicians will say tax windfall, but to me, that means tax increase, because that's ultimately coming from taxpayers' pockets. So what we wanted to see from states was them returning that unlegislated tax increase back to taxpayers. And they'll do that through the conformity process. So one of the things that we were studying for this most recent year of State Tax Cut Roundup was we were looking at how states were conforming to the federal tax code. And what we saw is that many states were taking the opportunity to cut taxes and return a lot of that unlegislated increase back to taxpayers' pockets.
Tim Estes, he's a legislative analyst at the Center for State Fiscal Reform at ALEC. Skip, I can remember back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan going up against Walter Mondale, and Walter Mondale made the pledge, I'm going to raise your taxes. Well, Walter Mondale lost 49 of the states. But today we're seeing this phenomena of people, Democrats, coming out and just about of the 23 that are running for president to a man, they're promising to raise taxes. So raising taxes used to be extremely unpopular with the voter. Mm-hmm. Is that changing?
I think that part of it is the reason. Part of the reason for this change is that I think that the media was ultimately very disingenuous when they did the rollout of the Trump tax reform. They said it was going to be, tax cuts for the rich and whatnot. But what we saw when you actually look at the policies, that could not be further from the truth. Doubling the standard deduction was a huge increase in tax savings for people across income spectrums. And people who take the standard deduction tend to be income restricted relative to people who itemize. So people taking the standard deduction could all of a sudden save a lot more money in their taxes every year. Every single tax bracket was cut. Every single rate was cut, including the lower tax brackets that people who, again, earn less income tend to take advantage of. And the IRS actually just released data to show the impact on tax savings by tax bracket from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And what you saw is that people who ended up owing more money after the tax law as a result of, like we mentioned earlier, getting rid of a lot of deductions and getting rid of the personal exemption, people who ended up paying more in taxes tended to be wealthier taxpayers.
All right. Tim Estes, ALEC, American Legislative Exchange Council. Skip, I keep calling you Tim. I apologize for that. Skip, please tell our audience how they could find out more about ALEC and also read this report.
Well, please visit us at www.alec.org. We have all of our reports hosted on the main page. So I'm from the Center for State Fiscal Reform. If you go through our website, you'll find the center page, and it has all of our rich states, poor states on there. It has all of our state tax cut roundups, as well as our state debt trilogies, like our pension report, unaccountable and unaffordable, other post-employment benefits, and the state bonded debt publication. So please visit us at www.alec.org, and you can even do a much more informative deep dive into state-by-state statistics on rich states, poor states at www.richstatespoorstates.org. So I encourage you to take a look at that and play around with state tax variables and see how your state ranks.
Skip, there's one way to stop me from calling you Tim, and that's to come back to our show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. That would be a pleasure.
Take care, and God bless.
You too.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to have another great guest, Roger Aronoff, friend of the show, who's the executive director and editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. And he's written a very interesting article how the CCRS members have helped expose the unraveling of the Obama administration conspiracy. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
Elkins goes to vote for Merrick.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect.
How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right to vote. It's too brutal.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle. Yes, that's Sharron Angle. And yours truly, Rick Trader. And want to give a shout out to the folks who are listening to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder in Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and now in Arlington, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Sharron, our next guest is with us, longtime friend of the show. Please make him feel welcome as usual.
Well, it's always a pleasure and a privilege and an honor to introduce Roger Aronoff, who's the Executive Director and Editor of Citizens Commission on National Security. Roger Aronoff founded the Citizens Commission on Benghazi. He has produced and directed 6 documentaries and produced a weekly series on PBS called Think Tank with Ben Wattenberg. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show, Roger.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Great to be with you again.
It's great to have you. And we have an article here. CCNS members help expose the unraveling Obama administration conspiracy. We didn't know there was a conspiracy over there with Obama. We thought it was all with Trump. What's going on? What's this conspiracy stuff?
This is really quite a story that I kind of piggybacked off of a story by Mary Fanning and Alan Jones. They've been covering something called the Hammer. And the way that the CCNS, the Citizens Commission on National Security, people became involved was that they had read this story and then they went on another show, Dave Janda's Operation Freedom, and talked about the Hammer, which is what this program was called. Basically, the CIA and the NSA under Clapper and Brennan had brought on someone named Dennis Montgomery, who was a contractor, worked for CIA, NSA, and FBI, and he created this super secret platform for basically surveillance and spying, and text messages and emails and phone calls. And this had been going on for quite some time. And this came out because Dennis Montgomery later became a whistleblower represented by Larry Klayman. And he had turned over, he was very disturbed by what he had created and how they were using it. And he turned over 47 hard drives, which included 600 million files.
Wow.
On things that they had picked up, including, and this came out in court when Klayman was representing him, because apparently they weren't doing enough with this. He was granted immunity, he being Montgomery, and there were tapes and read in court by Judge Murray Snow. This is in Maricopa County in Arizona. You know, that Trump had been wiretapped a zillion times. You know, obviously that's an exaggerated number, but this had been going on before he became president. And so the chain of events here was that Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney, who is one of our senior founding members of the Citizens Commission on National Security, went on this show and talked about it. And within a half hour, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, who I'm sure your listeners and viewers know quite well, they were texting back and forth references to this very interview. And the following morning, Comey testified before the House Select Committee on Intelligence that they were starting this investigation. At the time, they called it, a counterintelligence investigation into Trump and Russia, and if Russia was involved with the Trump campaign. And so that started. That was in March of 2017. And so that's the way our people, were, had a role in this coming out, because it happened right then, which, as we know, led to the eventually, after Comey was fired, then Mueller was appointed, and it turned into an investigation looking at Trump in terms of criminal activity. And we know the ultimate outcome of that. But what you have here really is something started under the Obama administration, clearly with, you have to assume his knowledge, because again, you look back at the Strzok Page text between them, and they later talk about how the White House is controlling everything.
Well, you write in your article, Roger, that the hammer under the Obama administration negated every American's constitutional rights to privacy, turning the United States into a police state where the federal government was weaponized by the Obama administration against its political enemies. Is that what he meant when he said, we will punish our enemies and reward our friends? Because we heard Obama say that, and we thought at the time, wow, what a statement. But he really had a real weapon, didn't he?
Well, he certainly did. And that quote you just gave is one that from the article that I was referring to, because the people that really did the investigative work on this to talk about the hammer and what it is and how it came about, again, were Mary Fanning and Alan Jones. And that was a quote from their article that I had in mind. And I would urge people to read mine, and it will lead to theirs as well. It's if you go to ccnationalsecurity.org, that's Citizens Commission, ccnationalsecurity.org, you'll find my article, and it leads to theirs. And we also have other great articles up on that site from Alan West and Claire Lopez and Colonel Lawrence Sellen, Steve Emerson of the Investigative Project on Terrorism, who's part of our commission. So I think you'll find a lot of really interesting articles on our site.
Well, I think there are just some great things in this article. Later on in the article, you say, while many Democrats and their media allies are constantly pushing impeachment and obstruction of justice as their chosen narrative, they are ignoring, belittling, mocking, and downplaying this emerging narrative of corruption and collusion on the part of the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton in their efforts to undermine the Trump candidacy and now his presidency. Do you think they will continue to, or do you think now this thing is really starting to break wide open? It seemed like when Attorney General Barr said, no, there's no collusion with the Trump campaign, that should have shifted over to where is the collusion, because we all know about Hillary Clinton and her close ties to Russia. And now you've opened up this whole thing about the hammer. So are we going to see justice here? Are we going to see a pursuit of justice?
Well, there's a pursuit going on, and that part was a quote from my article, and it is a matter that Trump has called the Mueller investigation a witch hunt all along. Now you see the media calling Trump's decision to declassify all of the FISA warrants and everything related to the investigation of him, or to give that authority to William Barr to decide what to declassify. Now they're saying he's going on a witch hunt to look into to investigate the investigators, as they say. And so they're trying to make it appear that he's a big hypocrite now, and he didn't want any more investigation, but now he wants this investigation. Well, this is a totally different thing, but it's kind of been hiding in plain sight, and many of us have been aware of it for a long time, since we saw Comey step up and give his July 5th press conference in 2016, where he cleared Hillary of any criminal wrongdoing when it was quite clear she had been violating the Espionage Act over and over again for years on her private unsecured server. And he even acknowledged it, saying that, yes, she had classified material. Yes, some of it was marked classified. No, she didn't only have one device. She had many devices, and she had destroyed them, and she had destroyed evidence. But he changed it from grossly negligent, which is a criminal standard that she had violated, and called it exceedingly or excessively careless, which was not. Just it's kind of a statement. And we know he had written up the exoneration 2 months before he ever interviewed her.
Well, certainly it was deliberate, and I think that we need to get this out in the open and have justice applied. We are coming to you from our Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet, on TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can also watch us on the TV, on the AUN TV network in Northern California. We've been talking with our guest, Roger Aronoff, who is the Executive Director and Editor of Citizens Commission on National Security. And he has written an article, CCNS members help expose the unraveling Obama administration conspiracy. We'll be right back with Rick Trader. I'm Sharron Engel, and our guest, Roger Aronoff, to continue talking about this conspiracy.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Engel and yours truly, Rick Trader. Our guest this segment is a very good friend of our show, Roger Aronoff. He's the Executive Director and Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Roger, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. Likewise. I always enjoy being with you, Rick, and you, Sharron.
Well, Roger, Sharron and I have very similar thinking because she talked about a part of your article that I had outlined. And it says here, the hammer under the Obama administration negated every American's constitutional rights to privacy, turning the United States into a police state where the federal government was weaponized by the Obama administration against its political enemies. Roger, could you, for a minute, talk about the different agencies that Obama weaponized and how they were used?
Well, we're basically talking about the NSA, the CIA, and the DOJ. I mean, the FBI under there. I just gave the example.
And add the IRS to that one, I think.
Well, yeah, I think with Lois Lerner, and they sure did. I mean, they went after the conservative groups strictly for political reasons to keep them quiet during the 2012 campaign. And, they were quite successful at doing that. So they certainly did. And this is just a huge story, though, to the idea that they had created this so-called the hammer to listen in on all of these calls, including, Trump as a candidate, and it's really quite a shocking thing. But the media will not touch it. I mean, I haven't even really heard it on Fox. I've seen a little bit, a while back. Larry Klayman was on there talking about it in his case representing Dennis Montgomery, but I don't see it really talked about anywhere. I mean, there's a lot of hope in what Barr is doing, and he's appointed John Durham, a U.S. attorney, to look into this, and apparently that's been going on for a number of months. Then you have the John Huber case out of Utah, looking into other aspects of it, and you've got the Inspector General looking into the Department of Justice. So you've got these 4 investigations, but I must say, until I see indictments, and these are big name people, and it never seems to happen that people at that level are held accountable. And I'm talking Comey, Clapper, Hillary, Obama. Will they ever be? And if they're not, will they come out and say, look, they've investigated us and no one filed any criminal charges, so we have been exonerated, just like Trump claims he was exonerated by the Mueller report. So that's a way this could boomerang back on those of us who want to see these people held accountable.
Roger, when you talk about this Russian collusion, this Russian the Russian influence on our election, another thing I don't hear the media talking about, unless you want to talk about the Conservative Commandos radio show. But Roger, another thing they don't talk about is one very, very simple fact. Who the hell was the president in 2016? Who was the president when this was all happening? Who was the president that did nothing that let this happen? Who was that president, Roger? And yet you hear no one talking about that. You would swear that Donald Trump was the president through all of this, but he wasn't. Barack Obama was the president. Yet nobody, nowhere except here, I'm proud to say, talks about that part.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And not only that, but who colluded with the Russians? We know Hillary, through the Perkins Coie, she had a law firm to sort of run interference and to be a layer or a level of sort of to hide this thing. And they hired Fusion GPS, who hired Christopher Steele, who I just saw this afternoon has refused to cooperate with the new U.S. Attorney, John Durham, on that. He's not going to answer his questions. We'll see what.
Oh, where's the outrage, Roger? Where's the outrage of that? I mean, well,
just
you think this is something that MSNBC or CNN is going to talk about?
Right. Turn on Anderson Cooper tonight, and he's going to be all over that story.
Oh, I'm sure, Roger. I'm sure. Hey, yeah. Roger, you wrote another paragraph in your article about John Solomon, who has done some of the best investigation work on this subject, wrote last month, quote, text messages between alleged FBI lovebirds Strzok and Page raised concern about, quote, pressure from the White House and the agency BS scheme, DOJ leaks, and the need for the FBI insurance policy, and as struck text at one point in August 2016, quoting a colleague, quote, the White House is running this. Now we're talking about August 2016. The White House is running this. Roger Aronoff, let's be clear about this. Whose White House was it? Whose White House?
Barack Obama, no doubt about it.
And again, you haven't heard about this. Where is the outrage about this? Gee, you know, I can remember Watergate and the outrage of the media, the outrage of the public that the White House may have had something to do with the third-rate break-in into the DNC's office at that time. Oh, my God. Nothing about this.
The outrage is very selective. And to me, the key word in there is an insurance. In other words, this was their insurance policy in case somehow, which they thought couldn't happen, shouldn't happen, wouldn't happen, that Trump gets elected. This is our insurance policy. And of course, they're talking about the Russia collusion investigation. They'll go after Trump. I mean, we know how they planted people there to get Papadopoulos to come to London and, you know, try to get him to say that, oh, you know, they're working with the Russians to get all the dirt on Hillary. When in fact, Hillary was paying Russians or paying to get Russian dirt, made up stuff on Trump. I mean, it's all well documented.
Well, that was all Russian money, Roger. You're talking she was paying the Russians to get dirt on Trump. Well, where'd she get that money? Well, she probably got that money from the Russians in the form of Bill Clinton being paid $500,000 for one speech. One speech, Roger. $500,000 in Moscow. I don't know who would want to hear Bill Clinton speak that badly to pay $500,000 for one speech. But I'd say that was a cycle there, Roger.
Well,
she used that money to pay the Russians, and she paid the Russians with money that she gave Bill.
And don't forget about the $145 million that went into the Clinton Foundation in exchange for support for Uranium One. Now they say, well, the timeline doesn't match up, but you know, the money went in, and the support came back to give Russia control of 20% of our uranium. And then there's the other one that rarely gets talked about, Skolkovo, which is the equivalent of the Russia Silicon Valley with dual-use technology that went to the Russians. So if anybody was helpful to the Russians, sat silently while, you know, they invaded Ukraine, we gave them, when Iran got $150 billion in that deal, how much did the Russians benefit from that when the Iranians passed it on to them to buy military equipment and so forth? You know, so look, I think the Russians knew who they could count on to be, to allow them to have their way.
Hey, Roger, gotta remind our audience of one more thing. The person who leaned over and said to Medved, tell Putin I'll be a little bit more flexible after this election. You know, that's collusion. Hey, Roger, we got to go. Roger Aronoff, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how they could follow the work of the Citizens Commission on National Security.
Well, thank you. Come to ccnationalsecurity.org. Sign up. We're sending out emails. Please help us out. We have a donor button on there, and we could use all the help we can get. And, you know, I so much admire Rick and Sharron for the work that they do at Conservative Commando. It's a great operation, and they need support too. And help them like and help
Well,
us.
Roger, I'm going to stop you for a minute because support for your organization is the only way we get this out. I mean, gosh, this quote here, the White House is running this, coming from Peter Strzok. The White House is running this.
Yes.
And support of your group is the only way we get this information out. Roger Aronoff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. Sharron and I will be back with more right after this break.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Well, once again, Sharron Angle, that just about wraps it up for today. I want to thank you for sitting in as my co-host. Please tell our audience how they could follow you when you're not here at Conservative Commandos.
Well, they can follow me at SharronAngle.com, SharronAngle.com. And I want to thank our guests because they really do make our show, Rick. The first guest that we had was Tim Bryce from The Bryce is Right. And he was talking about are these the good old days, something's in the water that makes those liberals so angry at us, the Constitution, anything conservative. They're just angry. And he said it must be in the water. Our second guest, Skip Estes from ALEC, the American Legislative American Legislative Exchange Council, was talking about their latest publication on the state tax cut roundup. So you want to get a copy of that, see where your state stands. And finally, we thank Roger Aronoff, a great friend who exposes conspiracies, real conspiracies. Yeah. If it's truth, it's really not paranoia. And we've known all along that Obama, Hillary Clinton, and now we see it from their own mouths. This was run by the 2016 White House that the Russian collusion comes from their side. I'm always reminded, Rick, when there's a finger pointing at you, there's three pointing back. So what they accuse us of, they're actually doing.
Yeah, and again, I keep reading this one line over and over and over again. Strzok texted at one point in August 2016, quoting a colleague, "The White House is running this." Where's that investigation? But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.